Thank you all for coming and attending this event today. My name is Lloyd Handy, aka DJ Boring, and today I'm going to be talking about electronic music, or more specifically, the evolution of electronic music. I'm going to talk about some of the history and the influences. Then I'm going to talk about some of the many different genres and styles that have developed within electronic music, and finally its emergence into pop culture as the global phenomenon that it is today. Although it comes from simple beginnings and some of the fundamental elements that remain throughout all electronic music are the same, it has a really wide number of influences and cultural places of origin. But in the end, all of those things kind of blend together into one basic form, and some might even say with a basic purpose. For music that's been mostly made on computers or other obscure electronic equipment, it's really just all about the drums. Even though there's elements of blues or rock or jazz or traditional music that appear in and influence electronic music, it might as well just be someone from 1,000 years ago beating on a drum that actually gets us dancing. So, electronic music by definition started as soon as there was an electric means to amplify or record sound. So maybe early French and Italian scientists in the 1940s that were making something called musique concrète were making the first remixes, just by mixing up nature sounds, industrial noise, and some classical instruments, and experimenting with their early recording equipment. But it is probably dub reggae that was invented in Jamaica in the 1960s that sounds much more like the most popular electronic music of today. It has heavy bass, driving drums, and spacey echo effects, and was all made of remixes from popular reggae music at the time. And it has to be added that the wild and raucous electronic music today called dubstep, made by artists such as Skrillex, has its origins in dub reggae. Around that time in the 1960s and 70s, a lot of interesting roots of electronic music began to emerge. In funk, rock, and psychedelic music, they introduced the use of the synthesizer into their music instead of only guitars. This example, for instance, is from Pink Floyd. It was also in the 1970s, around this time, that disco became a culture and a music that was dedicated entirely to dancing, and the beats for this music are built around what's called the 4/4 beat, where the kick drum hits on every single beat in the measure. This beat is still essential in electronic dance music today. Finally, there was the emergence of early hip-hop or rap. This is a style that was made possible mainly by the use of technology that could sample other music, sometimes drum breaks, and it also used early drum machines to add drum sounds to the beat. So with all of these different distinct styles and cultures, you can kind of see some of the different distinctive elements that came from early styles and have influenced electronic music today. A music historian has said of the Beatles that the beginning and the end of global music occurred when the most popular rock band of all time from Great Britain used an Indian sitar in their music. The world became a little bit smaller because now Indian traditional music became a part of pop music. And it kind of lost its cultural uniqueness, but the Beatles created something new for themselves with this. That the Beatles also dabbled in revolutionary recording techniques, sound effects, and also used synthesizers in their music only broadens the depth of their influence on electronic music today. But this key idea that suddenly everything became available into incorporation to make a new and unique musical sound has had the biggest impact, perhaps, on the many number of styles and subgenres that exist in electronic music today. For instance, I want to talk about something in the 1990s that was extremely popular in electronic music called drum and bass. Drum and bass is built entirely around a single 6-second drum sample, a loop of drums that was originally from a 1960s funk and soul song. You might recognize this beat. In this style, the kick drum hits very hard on the first two beats, and then again later in the measure. This single 6-second sample has been used thousands of times in electronic music for the style of drum and bass where it's been sped up and chopped up. And people would dance to this despite its unconventional beat. And also even in early rap, such as this example from NWA. Just slowed down a little bit more. So in the same way that the Beatles took something from somewhere else and incorporated it into its music, drum and bass and countless other subgenres inspired by that took this single 6-second drum loop and built whole worlds of music out of it. As far as rap music goes, my last example, there have been several evolutions just within hip-hop and rap style beats. The style called trap music, which is the most popular music of the club today, came from Atlanta, Georgia, in the southeast of the United States where I'm from. This music is built entirely around the sounds of a drum machine called the 808, and it gives us the hard bass in music such as Kendrick Lamar. And as I said, is still the most popular style of rap beats today. On the other hand, on the West Coast, in Los Angeles, California, there is a group of artists such as Flying Lotus who are infusing more and more jazz and cosmic jazz into their hip-hop beats, just experimenting in what a hip-hop beat can sound like with no rapping over it. Now, to speed things up, I want to talk a little bit about the style of techno. German techno distinguishes itself by having a much harder and darker sound than that of the original Detroit techno that was created in Detroit, Michigan in the United States. So although these two cities and these two places on opposite sides of the Atlantic were borrowing from and influencing each other, Germany was still creating a unique sound, and Detroit was still creating a unique sound. But this would be hard for common ears to tell the difference between because they both have that same 4/4 fast-hitting drum beat on every single beat of the measure. Still, I'd like to quote a German DJ named Paul Van Dyke here, who has interestingly remarked that techno was a major force in re-establishing social connections between East and West Germany during the unification period. So while not wholly original, the innovation of a regional and distinctive sound style in Berlin gave an identity to the makers and listeners of that music, and while there was a literal wall dividing people until it was torn down in Berlin. Today, Berlin has a vibrant and strong electronic music culture. People travel from all over the world to try to get into world-famous techno clubs such as Berghain. Sometimes people have trouble getting into those clubs because they might go on the wrong night and they don't know that the clubs don't even open until after midnight. So it can be tough. Anyway, there are hundreds or thousands of different styles and subgenres of electronic music being made all over the world. And with the means to do this being virtually unlimited because you can make it on your computer, anything that you can imagine can be made in electronic music. Sampling old music and using obscure traditional styles for influence proves that anything in the world that can be borrowed from or mined from influence will be electronic music. I recently had the pleasure of speaking with a Travis Stewart who makes incredible bass music as machine drum at a performance of his here in Beijing. We talked about how he has such a unique sound, to me blending a little bit of drum and bass, dubstep, and hip-hop, just to name a few. But he lamented that there's hardly a signature sound of a scene or city anywhere in the world anymore. Because with the internet, anybody can know about all the history of electronic music and all the hundreds of little tiny subgenres like Chicago footwork or LA brain feeder beats or Norwegian space disco and Ibiza beach house. And anybody can make that music on their laptop. Any of it. So, globalism and multiculturalism have kind of contributed to the rise and fall of individuality in electronic music. So, what have all of these different influences and different subgenres and unlimited musical creation ability for electronic music given us? I think that the evidence is there when you turn on the radio. All the top pop music hits of today are basically just electronic dance music with singing. It's subtle sometimes because the vocal narrative still drives so much of music, whether it's pop or rap. That's a powerful part of our listening today. But the beat is electronic. There are elements of electronic music in everything that people are dancing to today all over the world. So as electronic music continues to develop, new styles or new subgenres and variations might pop up from anywhere in the world and sound like something both familiar but also new and foreign. The material that is sampled might change, the speed might change, where the kick drum hits in the beat might change, or any other number of small details, but it's all part of this same field or form or movement. My favorite artist currently, a true genius of the remix and music in general, is DJ Cozy. He once said in an interview that while trying to predict the direction that electronic music might go in the future with all these unlimited creation capabilities and unlimited styles and everything, that he actually couldn't say. He had no idea. It's rightly hard to predict where anything is going to go in the world these days. But he did think that the kick drum is something that is always going to stay around. It's the thing that makes us dance. Thank you.